Dear students, today we are going to discuss about glucose. Our body needs glucose in abundant amount. In all the parts of our body, each and every tissue and cell utilize glucose for energy. All the cells are dependent on this glucose for energy. Glucose breaks down into pyruvic acid and then further break down into ATP. So our body gets energy. So how this glucose comes in our body? We take food. That food contain carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, proteins. Now these proteins break down into amino acid, fats break down into fatty acids, and carbohydrates break down into monosaccharide, polysaccharide, disaccharides. These monosaccharide are galactose, glucose, and fructose. So these glucose comes from our food, which is utilized in our body. Now the process glycolysis. This is a process of metabolism of glucose. Now what happens when glucose enters? It undergoes several steps to form two molecules of pyruvate. Okay, if oxygen is present and mitochondria is present, then under this condition it will go into Krebs cycle and abundant amount of ATP will produce. From glucose to pyruvate, here moderate amount of ATP will be produced, moderate amount of energy will be produced. But if it get oxygen and mitochondria, it will produce abundant amount of ATP, abundant amount of energy. And this is called the process from here to here is called aerobic glycolysis. What happens if it will not get oxygen? Then this process from glucose formation to pyruvate formation, this will lead to lactic acid formation in the absence of oxygen, and this process is called anaerobic glycolysis. Almost all cells undergo this process to produce ATP, energy. They follow Krebs cycle. Okay, but few cells follow this anaerobic glycolysis. And what is the example of the cells which follow anaerobic glycolysis? The cells which are not having oxygen, the cells which are not having mitochondria. And what are the cells which are not having mitochondria? What are the cells which are present in our body or not having mitochondria? They are red blood cells. They don't have mitochondria, but they have oxygen, in the presence of oxygen, but they are not having mitochondria. So anaerobic glycolysis will occur and lactic acid will be formed. Hemoglobin are so honest carrier of oxygen that they never take oxygen. They only supply and transport oxygen, but they never utilize oxygen of their own. They only transport oxygen. Okay, so oxygen are very honest transporters. So hemoglobin are the honest transporter of oxygen. Okay, then a process glycolysis, this process of metabolism of glucose. So we have to focus on this glucose. Okay, glucose is utilized in our body for energy. So what are the transporters which carry the glucose in our cells? What are the transporters? These are GLUT 1, GLUT 2, GLUT 3, GLUT 4, GLUT 5 and 7, not 6, only GLUT. This is glucose transporter. Okay, now where these transporters are present, we will see one by one. Okay, but first of all, let's know what is glucogenesis, what is glycolysis, what is gluconeogenesis, and what is glycogenolysis. Lysis means breakdown and genesis means formation. So glycolysis means breakdown of glucose molecule, and glycogenolysis means breakdown of glycogen into glucose. Okay, and glucogenesis means formation of glucose or glycogen, and glyconeogenesis means formation of a glucose molecule from the skeletal cells, of proteins and fatty acids. In fats and proteins, carbon structure is present, and these carbon structures are used for formation of glucose. So we can say in glyconeogenesis, formation of glucose from proteins and fatty acids. Okay, now let's focus on glucose. Glucose comes in our body and utilized. Glucose is taken in our body and it is absorbed in stomach and then goes to portal vein. From portal vein it goes to liver, and liver has the hepatic cells which utilize this glucose. And there, if there is excess of glucose, they convert it into glycogen for the further use, and required amount of glucose is carried in circulation. Okay, so here if this is stomach and food is here, so glucose is absorbed in our this portal vein, and here liver is present, and all the glucose goes here and they form a chain like structure, and this is called glycogen. So glycogen is stored here for further use, and some amount of glucose goes into circulation in general circulation. Okay, in general circulation it goes and utilized, okay, as energy. What happens every hour we don't eat? What happens if we undergo fasting, for example, for 3 hours, 4 hours, when we don't eat, but our body needs regularly glucose for energy? We are dependent on energy every hour. So what happened that time? These stored energy, these stored glycogen, they break down. This glucose will break down into this glycogen break down into glucose, and this glucose release into circulation, and thus this glucose is utilized. So sometimes when we don't eat, we are under fasting conditions, but our body never strive of glucose. They get glucose from liver. So liver act as a bank for glucose. When we need glucose, it gives glucose. When there is abundant amount of glucose, they stored this glucose as a form of glycogen in our liver. So liver acts as a bank for glucose. And this transporters are present which convert glucose to glycogen and glycogen to glucose. We will study each and every transport in detail in next lecture. Okay, thank you.